Hi, I'm Colton. Welcome to Consoloscopy, where we go deep on consoles and controllers, cleanings, and repairs. And today, here we have a Nintendo Gamecube controller, and you can see the thumbstick is a bit loose, a lot of play in it, and the buttons are a bit mushy. They don't have a very crisp click to them. We will be swapping out the C-Stick as well as the thumbstick modules inside of it. From what I read, it sounds like it's best to take the C-Stick's module and swap it out into the thumbstick, and then take the new module and put it where the C-Stick one was. And that's what we plan to do today. Yeah, that does seem to be pretty stiff. Now, this controller did go into the bathtub with my son a few times, so let's hook it up and see if it even works. Yes, this GameCube will be featured in a future episode.
Battle, fight!
Surprisingly, all the buttons do seem to be working, but yeah, that thumbstick is a little loose. Let's get our electronic tool kit out. This cost about $30 on Amazon. Pull out your bit holder and look for the Y bit. Not the smallest, not the largest, probably right about medium for the back of the controller. You'll see here there's literally one screw that is a classic Phillips. The other 5 are removed with the Y bit. Go ahead and swap out to a Phillips head bit, and you'll see that many of these screws, especially this one right here, have a substantial amount of corrosion on them, probably due to a dip in the bathtub. Gently open the controller, and I would say to take note how the wire is wrapped around at the very top, as it's a little tricky to get back in when you're putting it back together. We see here a handful of rusty spots that we plan on cleaning up. You can see here after we carefully remove the board that there's a good bit of grossness up under the thumbstick, and a couple of other spots there's hair and other nastiness that is not surprising for such an old controller that's been used. Here you see a closer look of the plate that's in the thumbstick that we plan to replace. I very much look forward to cleaning this off. Here you can see the pins for the replacement module that I purchased are a little bit bent, and that's on both of them. So be sure to straighten those out before you attempt to solder them into place. While I remove the left and the right buttons, I want to take this moment to request that if this video helps you or you've enjoyed it in any way, if you would hit that like button and or subscribe button, I would certainly appreciate it. As I have got a collection of consoles and controllers that I look forward to creating videos in the future, similar to this one, any and all support is welcome, as are questions and comments. The L and R buttons both come out relatively easily, but you might want to take note as to how that little bar connects to them on the other side of the spring, as when you're putting it back together, it can be a little confusing. Next up, it's one of my favorite parts, which is time to clean. Get you some isopropyl alcohol, 70%. I've also used 90, but I don't really see a big difference, so I've cut it back down to 70. And put in a little bowl. While I did use alcohol to clean this plastic, the controller, and all the buttons, it's generally recommended against that, as it could leave some fog or dry out the plastic. Instead, probably use soap or some Dr. Bronner's for future reference. But definitely use alcohol for the electric parts in the PCB. I know this thumbstick is not going to look perfect. I don't currently have the resources to do plastic whitening, but I hope to in the future. In the meantime, the gunk is gone and functionality should be pretty much fully restored. Quickly here, I'm going to go through all the little buttons and give them all a good wipe down. They all look pretty good originally, but it can't hurt to clean them while you have it all to pieces. You can see here that any of the metal that really got rusted, barely touching them with the Q-tip when cleaning just really get them quite filthy, so I went through an awful lot of Q-tips. Not that that would change the functionality of something like a spring, but I can't help myself. This part has some serious build-up grime over the years, no telling. Super Smash Brothers, Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2. Let's get that cleaned up. And quick note, I used the toothbrush to loosen it up, and then I came back with the ear swab to really get the rest of it. Here I did loosen up the connection a good bit before I used the tweezers to pop it the rest of the way off, so be cautious and be careful. I can't deny that I'm an amateur when it comes to soldering. Here I should have used some flux before trying to use the solder wick to get some of this solder off. The result was fine, and I did use the flux for future soldering in the rest of this video. If you're curious about this handy little tool I'm using to pry off this module, it does come with the set of tools that I showed earlier. Removing the battery makes it a little bit easier to access the soldering points of the thumbstick, and it's a pretty easy job. And don't forget to remove some of the excess solder. Again, even for desoldering, applying some flux would be recommended for this part. If the module's too difficult to remove, be sure to look at the legs of the module and make sure you've got all the spare solder off. Because I wanted to use the original C-Stick module in the thumbstick, I wanted to take off the side parts and replace them with the new ones that I got. Pretty big difference, and the top one looks pretty jacked up. Sadly, the new one did not attach to the original module all that securely. This proved to be a complication later on, as I still attempted to install it despite the fact that it didn't quite fit. I figured once it had been soldered in, the connection would be just fine. I was wrong. I went ahead and removed any sort of residual solder that was still attached to the legs of the original module. The connection looked and felt good. However, it seems as though something got a little wonky at some point through the soldering process. Again, I'm not an expert at soldering, but I do plan on getting better. I consider this a part of the growing pains of learning. To further the growing pains, once again, that side part of the module just wasn't quite right. The connection was not made like I thought it might be, and it became clear that it's time to just go with the new modules altogether and do away with this old one. Fortunately, the part that did not quite snap onto the old one still snapped right back into the new one. And while I know I spent a couple of minutes in this video showing a mess up, that's just a part of it, and hopefully it will save you time not doing what I did. The connection appears to be solid. Looks good. Adding flux before soldering allows the solder to actually be pulled down into the holes where the pins are sticking through, making for a better connection. In hindsight, I should probably have put a little bit more solder on that top right pin, but the connection still feels secure. After attaching that metal bar to the L button, just be sure to pop it up parallel with the L button and then put the spring in. Because as seen here, it needs to be on the opposite side. Now, while I put these L and R buttons back in, one more reminder that if this video did help you, or you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe, and or comment. Thanks. Note that both the C-Stick as well as the Thumbstick can only go on to the module one way. Just look at the back of the C-Stick and the Thumbstick and make sure you line it up correctly. For the record, I did not like how these replacement button pads fit, or rather did not fit, underneath the buttons. Be sure to get those battery wires up under the clip, above the connections on that plastic piece. As mentioned earlier, the cord is a little tricky to line up just right. Keep fiddling with it and use this video as a reference to where it goes, and you'll get it. So now I want to clean these screws right here, and I know it'll lose the color that these screws are intended to be, but I'm going to scrape them off with some sandpaper. I needed finer sandpaper, but did not have any at the moment, so this will still get the job done. This is my first time using any sort of polish like this, as it was recommended on another page. I basically put a little blob and worked it in on the microfiber cloth to try and give these screws a little bit of a shine. Not perfect, but better than the erosion. To reassemble the back, I started with the Phillips head, the only one like it of the screws. Then I went to the wide-tipped ones. Now that all the grime is gone, and the modules have been replaced, it looks good, feels good, buttons aren't as squishy, but let's see if it actually works. Success. And that does it for the GameCube controller. If you've enjoyed this and you would like to see some more content similar, just be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.